The wind whipped around Emma as she stood at the edge of the grave, her black coat wrapped tightly around her slender frame. The sky was a dreary gray, like someone had drained the color out of the world. Raindrops clung to the coffin lid like silent tears, and the priest's words faded beneath the low rumble of thunder in the distance. Her husband, Daniel, was gone. Gone in a single tragic car crash. No skid marks, no other vehicles involved. Just a twisted wreckage on a lonely road. It had happened so fast. One moment he was running late from a business trip. The next she was identifying his body in a sterile, fluorescent-lit room, his face barely recognizable beneath bruises and blood. Emma held herself together through the service, the condolences, the long embraces from people she barely knew. It wasn't until she was finally alone in her car that she allowed herself to unravel, clutching the steering wheel, sobbing until her chest ached. But nothing could have prepared her for what was waiting when she pulled into her driveway. There they were, her in-laws. Luggage on the porch, boxes stacked beside them like they were checking into a hotel. Her mother-in-law, Marianne, was dressed in a stark navy suit, her expression unreadable beneath a pair of dark sunglasses. Emma stepped out of the car, confusion crawling up her spine. "Marianne?" she said cautiously. What are you doing here?" Marianne removed her sunglasses slowly, her lips curling into a cold, humorless smile. "This is ours now," she said flatly. "You need to leave." Emma blinked. "What are you talking about? This is my home. Daniel and I." "Daniel bought this house. It's in his name only," Marianne cut in, her voice laced with a venom Emma had never heard before. "And his will, his new will, leaves everything to his blood, not to you." Emma's breath caught. "That's not true. We had a will drafted together when we closed on the house. He wanted me to have it, he said." "That was years ago," Marianne said with a casual shrug. "Things change." Emma looked past her to see her father-in-law already inside, rearranging furniture like it belonged to him. Her brother-in-law was in the kitchen, opening cabinets, helping himself to whatever was left of her life. The disorientation hit like a sucker punch. Her heart pounded in her ears. It didn't make sense. None of this made sense. "Where's the will?" she demanded. "Let me see it." "You'll get a copy," Marianne said coolly. "Our lawyer will be in touch. Until then, I suggest you gather your things." Emma's hands trembled as she fumbled with her phone. She didn't even know who to call. Her own parents had passed, and she had no siblings. She was alone. Completely and devastatingly alone. She stared up at the house, the place where she and Daniel had hosted dinner parties, laughed over takeout, argued about paint colors. Their bedroom window still had the white curtains she had picked out on a whim. It was hers. Every memory, every floorboard. And now, somehow, it wasn't. Emma didn't say another word. She turned, got back into her car, and drove away. Not because she believed them. Not because she had given up, but because something deep in her gut whispered that this was only the beginning. And whatever game they were playing, she was going to find out the rules and break them all. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat curled on the stiff leather couch in her friend Nora's apartment, her eyes fixed on the window, watching as city lights flickered in the distance. Her mind was a maze of legal jargon, old conversations, and the last haunting words of her mother-in-law. "This is ours now." But Emma remembered. She remembered Daniel standing in their living room 3 years ago, flipping through the pages of the joint will they signed after buying the house. He had insisted they protect each other. "We need something official," he'd said, "just in case something happens to either of us. Just in case." She clung to that memory like a life raft. At sunrise, Emma made her move. She returned to the house quietly, hoping the in-laws were still asleep or out. She parked a few houses down, slipped through the side gate, and used her own key. Thankfully, they hadn't changed the locks yet. The house felt cold, unfamiliar, like it had already begun purging her. She moved quickly through the office, pulling open drawers, scanning the files Daniel had always been too meticulous to misplace. He had a binder, a thick black one labeled important, where they kept insurance, property documents, and yes, the will, but it wasn't there. The entire binder was gone. Panic welled up in her throat. She checked the filing cabinet, the desk drawers, even the hidden spot behind the bookcase panel where Daniel used to stash envelopes full of emergency cash. Nothing. Her stomach churned. Could they have taken it? Destroyed it? She found the house deed. Daniel's name alone. That part was true, but the will should have changed everything. It was supposed to name her as the sole beneficiary of his assets, including the home. Daniel had said so, again and again. Emma paused, then darted toward the closet in the master bedroom, one place she knew Marianne wouldn't go near. Behind an old suitcase, tucked beneath a winter coat, she found a small fireproof box. The key was still taped to the underside. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside were loose documents, insurance policies, but no will. Instead, a single envelope. Her name written in Daniel's handwriting. She ripped it open. Inside, just a single sheet of paper, folded and yellowed. A list of names, banks, a P.O. box number in another state, and one line scribbled at the bottom in frantic ink. If something happens, trust no one, not even them. Them? Who was them? Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. Emma shoved everything back inside the box, locked it, and returned it to its hiding place. She slipped out the back door just as her brother-in-law's voice boomed down the stairs. Was someone just in here? She didn't stop to look. Later that day, her worst fears were confirmed. Marianne's lawyer sent over the updated will. The signature looked off. The notary stamp was smudged. And it had been dated just 6 weeks before Daniel's death. Emma sat staring at the document in numb silence. There was no trace of her. No mention of their marriage. Just a line of beneficiaries that all bore the last name Langford. Daniel's family. It didn't just feel wrong, it felt deliberate. And suddenly, grief gave way to something sharper. Something stronger. Rage. They thought they could erase her. Replace her. Sweep her out like a guest overstaying her welcome. But they underestimated the widow they just made. Floor of Nora's spare bedroom, her phone plugged into a portable charger, Daniel's old phone lying next to hers. The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of traffic outside and the occasional creak of old plumbing. It had been 3 days since she discovered the forged will, and every hour since had only sharpened the ache in her chest into something colder, heavier. Daniel's phone had been found in the wreckage and returned with his belongings. It had taken Emma this long to work up the nerve to turn it on. The cracked screen flickered to life like a dying star. She tapped in the passcode, his birthday of course, and held her breath. It worked. The home screen looked the same. A wallpaper of the two of them in Tuscany, smiling, wine-drunk and sun-drenched. It felt like a photograph of strangers now. She went straight to the voicemail tab. There were 8 messages, all marked as deleted. Her thumb hovered. She didn't know what she expected. Apologies? Love letters? A clue? She tapped undelete. The first few were mundane. A rescheduled meeting, a call from the bank. Then the 4th one hit. Emma, it's me. Look, I need to talk to you. There's something I haven't told you. Something I should have said a long time ago. Just call me back, okay? Please. The timestamp, 3 weeks before his death. Her mouth went dry. The next message played automatically. Forget what I said before. It's fine. Everything's fine. Just been stressed at work. But he didn't sound fine. His voice trembled at the edges, like he was holding back panic. Another message. They're watching, Em. I don't know who I can trust. If anything happens to me, just know that I tried. I really tried to fix it. Her chest tightened. Who was they? Emma paused the playback, heart racing. It was as if Daniel had been living a secret life parallel to theirs, just beyond her line of sight. The 7th message was worse. They know I've been digging. I don't think I'm safe. I should have told you about everything sooner. but I didn't want to drag you into this." His voice cracked. There was fear in it, raw, unfiltered. The kind of fear that couldn't be faked. The final message was barely audible, like he had been whispering. "If you're hearing this, I'm gone. Check the drawer behind the safe. And Emma, whatever you do, don't trust them, not even family." A sharp knock on the door startled her. She dropped the phone. "Emma?" Nora's voice came through gently. "You okay?" Emma quickly wiped her eyes. "Yeah, just listening to some old stuff." When Nora left, she sat frozen for a long time. The drawer behind the safe? He had left her a message, a breadcrumb trail. And not even family. That line rang like a gunshot. Did Daniel know what his family was capable of? She glanced over at his cracked phone screen again, suddenly aware of how quiet the room had become. It wasn't just grief anymore. It was terror. A gnawing realization that Daniel hadn't just died, he had expected to die. And now, the last person he trusted was her. Emma stared at the laptop screen, her eyes narrowing as she scrolled through Daniel's bank statements again. Dozens of transactions stood out, scattered across months. Same name, same location, Lily W. in Spring Ridge, a sleepy little town 2 hours away. At first, she had dismissed them as business-related. Daniel traveled often for work. At least, that's what he told her, but the payments weren't corporate. They were personal, rent transfers, boutique hotel stays, jewelry stores, once a florist, roses delivered on Emma's birthday, but billed to another address entirely. It was a puzzle missing one critical piece, until she traced the most recent transaction, a $5,000 transfer marked as final support. Her stomach dropped. With trembling fingers, she looked up the address tied to the florist's delivery record. It led to a townhouse in Spring Ridge. Emma sat frozen for several minutes before she grabbed her coat and keys. 2 hours later, she stood outside a charming brick building, surrounded by manicured shrubs and silence. Apartment 2B. Her hands shook as she rang the bell. The woman who opened the door was younger than Emma expected, maybe mid-30s, graceful, with sharp cheekbones and auburn hair swept into a bun. She wore a silk robe, and her expression flickered the moment she saw Emma. "You're not the delivery girl," the woman said carefully. "No," Emma replied, her voice low. "I'm Daniel Langford's wife." The color drained from the woman's face. Her hand dropped from the doorframe. "I'm Lily," she said after a beat. "Would you like to come in?" Inside, the apartment was minimalist and tasteful. No photographs, but just enough style to suggest someone had been living here for a while. Emma sat on the edge of a cream sofa as Lily poured tea, her hands visibly trembling. "I didn't know he was married," Lily said at last. "He told me you two were separated, that the divorce was just a formality." Emma stared at her. "He told me he was flying to Chicago for work. Every other week. For 2 years. Lily sat down across from her. "He wasn't lying. He was going to Chicago. That's where we met. At a hotel bar. I thought it was fate. He said he was tired of pretending to be someone he wasn't. He talked about starting over, leaving all the mess behind. We made plans." Emma blinked, numb. "Plans?" "He promised me a ring," Lily said softly. "Said he just needed to finalize some loose ends. He even showed me a receipt for it. But then the texts got erratic. He stopped answering for days at a time. He said someone was threatening him. He seemed terrified." Emma felt the world tilt slightly. "I thought maybe he was pulling away," Lily went on. "But then I got that last transfer. And nothing since. I didn't even know he died until you showed up." Emma's voice cracked. "He left you out of the will too, didn't he?" Lily nodded, slowly. "I guess he lied to both of us." A strange silence filled the space between them. 2 women. 1 man. 1,000 broken promises. Emma stood, her fingers still clenched around the teacup. "If you find anything else, Texts, receipts, anything, call me. Lily looked up. Do you think someone killed him? Emma met her eyes. I don't know. But I intend to find out. Emma barely remembered the drive back from Springridge. Her mind buzzed with questions, tangled like a web she couldn't tear through. Lily hadn't known about her. Daniel had lied, to both of them. But why? And who was threatening him? Back at Nora's apartment, Emma powered up her laptop and logged into Daniel's email. She had tried several combinations over the last few days with no luck, but after seeing Lily's face, the betrayal carved into her expression, something in Emma shifted. She tried Daniel's old football jersey number, followed by the name of their cat. It worked. Her breath caught in her throat as the inbox opened. Thousands of emails. Most routine. Work, newsletters, promotional spam. But tucked between them were a series of flagged messages. Some encrypted, some auto-forwarded to an unfamiliar secondary address. She copied it down. d.langford924@poboxmail.com. But the real goldmine was in the drafts folder. There were no sent emails. He must have been too paranoid. But there, half-written and never delivered, were messages that read like confessions. Or warnings. If this reaches you, it means I've gone too deep. I opened something I shouldn't have. It's not just money, Em. It's people. Names. You'll know what to do. In another, I made accounts, in case I needed to disappear. The Cayman one's under Kellen Hart. You'll need the USB. It's still in the drawer behind the picture frame. Emma shot to her feet. She remembered the frame. Their honeymoon photo in the silver-edged frame Daniel had always refused to let her replace. A gift from his father, he'd said. Back at the house, she snuck in again while the in-laws were out for the afternoon. This time she was quicker, quieter. She went straight for the photo. Behind the velvet backboard, taped flat against the interior, was a small black USB. She pocketed it and left without breathing. At Nora's, she plugged the USB into her laptop, heart pounding. Inside were scanned documents, wire transfers, account statements, and ledgers tied to names she didn't recognize. The amounts were staggering. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, routed through shadow banks, offshore entities, and shell companies. One of them was listed under a name she did know, Thomas Langford, her brother-in-law. Emma's mouth went dry. The transactions linked Daniel and Thomas to a company named Fallow Ridge Holdings, with irregular payments labeled consulting, brokerage, and once, chillingly, silencer. There were also payments to third parties, $10,000 a month to someone listed as L.W. Lilly. Others were anonymous, but one thing was clear. Daniel was laundering money. Or hiding it. Maybe both. At the very bottom was a document Daniel had marked insurance. It was a legal retainer agreement with a firm in Toronto. A clause highlighted in yellow read, "In the event of death, client's legal protections extend to prearranged beneficiary." The name listed? Emma Langford. Her hands shook. Somewhere Daniel had tried to protect her. He had buried the truth beneath lies and betrayal, but he had also planted a breadcrumb trail. And now, one thing was certain. Whatever he was mixed up in, his family wasn't just benefiting from his death, they were involved in the secrets that might have caused it. Emma couldn't sleep. The revelations from the buried accounts left her mind spinning with possibilities and dangers. If Daniel had been hiding so much, what else was lurking in the shadows? Her instincts led her back to the house, the place that no longer felt like home but held the answer she desperately needed. The in-laws were away again. Marianne had said she was attending a family luncheon, though Emma suspected it was more about controlling their narrative than anything else. The house was quiet when Emma slipped in, a strange blend of familiarity and menace hanging in the air. She headed straight to Daniel's office, the room thick with the scent of old paper and leather. The desk, usually so orderly, was now covered in folders and unopened mail. evidence of hurried departures or perhaps deliberate distractions. Her eyes caught a small envelope tucked behind the stack of bills. It was yellowed and worn, with Daniel's name and her own address written neatly across the front. With trembling hands, Emma tore it open. Inside was a file. Photographs, typed reports, and a folded sheet of paper stamped with a name she recognized from her own research: Gavin Rowe, private investigator. Emma flipped through the pages, eyes scanning the carefully documented evidence. Photos of men meeting in shadowed alleyways, bank buildings with security cameras in view, and what appeared to be surveillance footage of a late-night exchange. Faces blurred, but she could make out one man's distinctive tattoo, a serpent wrapped around his wrist. There were notes, too. Handwritten observations by Gavin, detailing conversations overheard, suspicious phone calls, and the movements of someone referred to simply as Subject A. At the bottom of one report was a chilling message in bold: "They know. Someone's onto the trail. Proceed with caution." Emma's breath caught. They. Again, who were they? Another document was a letter from Gavin to Daniel, dated only a month before his death. "Daniel, I've uncovered something. This goes beyond money laundering or family squabbles. There are people who will kill to keep this buried. If you need out, tell me immediately." The final page was a map, locations marked with red X's across the city: a warehouse, a marina, a corporate office, each one connected by lines, like the points of a spider web. Emma felt a cold shiver. This wasn't just about family betrayal or hidden accounts anymore. It was something far darker. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps in the hallway jolted her upright. Her heart raced. She grabbed the folder and stuffed it into her bag, edging toward the door. As she slipped out, a shadow fell across the doorway. Marianne stood there, her eyes narrowing. "I see you're poking around," Marianne said quietly, a dangerous smile playing on her lips. "Curiosity can be costly." Emma met her gaze steadily. "This family doesn't get to rewrite the truth." Marianne laughed softly. "Oh, Emma, you still don't understand. This isn't about truth. It's about survival. And some secrets are meant to stay buried." Emma didn't reply. Instead, she walked past Marianne and out into the fading daylight, clutching the file like a lifeline. The pieces were coming together, but with every step she took closer to the truth, the danger tightened its grip around her. Because someone was watching. And they knew. The night air was heavy with silence as Emma stepped back into the house she once called home. The familiar creak of the floorboards beneath her feet echoed through the empty rooms like a ghost's whisper. Each shadow seemed to stretch longer than it should, and the walls themselves felt as though they were watching her. Since she had uncovered the private investigator's file, the house had become a battleground. Emma had spent sleepless nights poring over evidence, but now, it seemed, the battle was turning personal. It started small, lights flickering in rooms she hadn't entered. The security cameras, which the in-laws had installed for safety, began turning on and off unpredictably. The locks on doors she had previously double-checked were found unlocked, as if inviting someone in. She found small items moved. Her favorite mug turned upside down, a framed photo slid sideways. Emma's skin prickled with unease. She wasn't imagining it. Someone was sending her a message. Then came the break-in. She returned home late one evening after meeting with Nora to find the front door ajar. Her heart pounded as she pushed it open, the cold draft slipping inside like a warning. Inside, the house was eerily silent, but the living room was a mess. Drawers pulled out, papers scattered, and the fireproof box missing. Emma's breath caught. Her sanctuary, her last hope for proof, had been violated. But nothing else was taken. No valuables, no electronics, only the box. It wasn't theft, it was intimidation. She called the police, but with no signs of forced entry and no stolen items, the investigation was slow. They suggested she might have left a window open. But Emma knew better. The night after the break-in, Emma stayed in a friend's apartment, afraid to sleep alone in the house that no longer felt safe. But the haunting didn't end there. The next morning, she found a single white rose on her doorstep, fresh, unblemished, and wrapped in a piece of parchment. She unfolded the note. "You're meddling where you don't belong. Stop now, or the next visit won't be so polite." Emma's hands trembled, her pulse a frantic drumbeat in her ears. The warning was clear, and it came from someone who knew her every move, but Emma refused to be cowed. She took photos of the Rosen note and sent them to the private investigator she'd hired. His reply was swift and grave. "They're watching you closely. Be careful. This is no longer just about property or wills." Emma began to suspect that the house itself was a silent witness to the secrets buried within its walls. Every creak, every flicker of a light was a reminder that she was not alone. One night, while going through old photo albums tucked away in the attic, she found a folded letter Daniel had hidden inside a book. It was addressed to her, unfinished, a confession she never received. "Emma, if you're reading this, it means I've failed to protect you. They are closer than ever. Trust no one, not even those you call family." Tears blurred her vision, but her resolve hardened. The house may remember all the secrets Daniel had tried to hide, but now it was her turn to uncover them. Because giving up was no longer an option. Emma sat at the edge of her bed, the weight of the past weeks pressing on her like a storm cloud, refusing to break. The house felt colder than ever, and the walls seemed to whisper secrets she was only beginning to understand. But tonight was different. Tonight she wasn't going to hide. Tonight she was going to fight. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a message from her new private investigator, Mark Reynolds. "Found something. We need to meet. ASAP." Emma's fingers trembled as she typed back. "Where?" Within minutes she was out the door, driving through the city's dim streets to a small cafe tucked between a florist and a dry cleaner. Mark waited inside, papers spread across the table, his face grim. "They were in trouble, Emma," Mark began, sliding a thick folder toward her. "Your in-laws, Marianne, Thomas, they weren't just greedy, they were desperate." Emma flipped through the documents, bankruptcy filings, unpaid debts, liens on properties. Financial ruin stared back at her in black and white. They had lost almost everything in the past year, but Daniel's death had oddly come at the perfect time. "What else?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fury rising inside her. Mark leaned in, lowering his voice. "Insurance! Life insurance!" Marianne and Thomas were the beneficiaries of a policy worth nearly $2 million. One you weren't named on. Emma's breath hitched. Daniel never mentioned this. Mark shook his head. "That's not all. There's evidence they were pressuring him. Calls from collection agencies, threats from loan sharks connected to some very dangerous people. If Daniel didn't pay up, they'd lose everything." Emma's mind reeled. Had they pushed him? Had they made him pay with his life? Suddenly, a plan began to take shape in her mind. She wasn't just going to sit back and watch them steal everything she and Daniel had built. She would expose them. She would fight fire with fire. The next day, Emma hired a seasoned attorney specializing in estate disputes and forensic accounting. She began gathering evidence, filing motions to freeze the family assets, and preparing to challenge the forged will in court. But the fight wasn't just legal. Emma knew she needed allies. She reached out to Lily, the other woman, sharing carefully selected information. Though wary at first, Lily agreed to work with her. Two women betrayed by the same man, bound by a mutual enemy. Together they began piecing together the puzzle. Emma's world, once shattered by grief and betrayal, was now fueling a fierce determination. Each call, each document uncovered, was a strike against the people who thought they could erase her. But the closer she got, the more the threats escalated. Her car was keyed overnight, anonymous calls whispered warnings, and one night, a brick shattered the front window, an unmistakable message: "Back off." Emma felt the danger closing in, but she refused to back down. "This is my home," she whispered fiercely, standing amid the broken glass. "My life, and I'm not leaving." The widow was no longer a victim. She was a force, and the battle for justice, and for the truth, had only just begun. The scent of smoke still lingered in the air when Emma arrived at the mechanic's shop, a small, dusty garage on the outskirts of town where Daniel had taken his car regularly. The building looked abandoned now. The windows were blackened, and the door hung crooked on its hinges. Flames had reduced what was once a modest workspace to a skeleton of charred metal and ash. Emma stepped cautiously inside, her boots crunching on broken glass and soot-covered debris. The heat of the fire had warped the walls and melted signs, but amid the destruction, she spotted something familiar. A scorched clipboard nailed to a burnt-out workbench. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it. The clipboard held a half-burned report, Daniel's last inspection sheet. Her eyes skimmed the barely legible handwriting. Brake lines tampered, possible deliberate sabotage, urgent repairs needed. Emma's heart pounded. Sabotage. Her breath caught as she realized what this meant. Daniel's fatal crash hadn't been an accident. Someone had wanted him dead. Emma's phone buzzed. A message from Mark, her private investigator. The mechanic, Andy Miller, has disappeared. No calls, no appointments. His car's still here. Disappearance. Emma's chest tightened. Andy was a key witness. He knew too much. She couldn't wait. Back at Nora's, Emma spread out all the evidence she had gathered. The forged will, the bank accounts, the PI's reports, and now this. Proof of foul play in Daniel's car. Her hands shook, but her resolve hardened. She dialed the local police detective she had tentatively contacted weeks ago. "This is Emma Langford," she said firmly. "I have new evidence about Daniel's death. I need to report a crime." The detective listened, skepticism in his voice. But after Emma's insistence, he agreed to reopen the case. Days later, Emma received a call. "Miss Langford, we've found Miller's apartment. It's been ransacked. Looks like someone was searching for something." Emma closed her eyes, the room spinning, the net was tightening. Someone close to her was helping cover this up. Someone with access, with power. She thought of Thomas, her brother-in-law. His strange late-night calls, the offshore accounts, the hush money. Her own family had turned predator. Determined, Emma arranged a meeting with an old colleague of Daniel's, someone who might have insight into his last days. The man arrived at the cafe, cautious but willing to talk. He was scared, he said quietly. Daniel was working on exposing something big, a scheme involving the family business, money laundering, and threats from some dangerous people. Emma leaned in. "He told me he was planning to go public, but he never got the chance." The weight of betrayal crushed her. That night, as Emma sat in the darkened house, the walls whispered secrets she was only beginning to hear. Her husband hadn't just been a victim. He had been a fighter. And now, so was she. The air was thick with tension as Emma stood in front of the grand dining table, its polished surface set for what was supposed to be a memorial dinner in Daniel's honor. The Langfords had insisted on hosting it, Marianne's idea of public image management, no doubt, but Emma had a different plan for the evening. All the key players were there, Marianne at the head of the table in her trademark pearls, Thomas nursing a glass of bourbon, and a scattering of extended family dressed in black, murmuring condolences and small talk. Emma took a deep breath, clutching the thick folder in her hand. Mark, her PI, stood quietly in the background, positioned near the doorway just in case things turned ugly. And they would, she cleared her throat. "If I could have everyone's attention," she said, loud enough to silence the clinking of silverware. All eyes turned to her. "I thought tonight should be about truth," Emma continued. "About honoring Daniel, not just who he was, but what he left behind." Marianne raised an eyebrow. "Emma, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," Emma interrupted. She laid the folder on the table and opened it. "This," she said, "is proof that Daniel's death wasn't an accident. His brake lines were cut. The mechanic who discovered it disappeared the day after his garage mysteriously burned down." Gasps rippled through the room. Thomas stiffened. "And here," she added, flipping to another document, "are bank transfers, offshore accounts, payments made to silence people, including Lily Walker." Thomas stood abruptly. "You don't know what you're talking about." Emma looked him dead in the eye. "You were broke. Both of you. Marianne, your credit was maxed out. Thomas, your company was about to fold. Daniel found out you were funneling money through Fowler Ridge Holdings." Marianne's face went pale. Emma dropped the final sheet, a signed and time-stamped legal memo. He hired a lawyer in Toronto to secure an insurance clause naming me as the rightful beneficiary. He was trying to protect me from the mess you were all dragging him into. You don't have any real evidence, Thomas growled. Emma smiled coldly. I've already turned it all over to the authorities. This is just a courtesy. Marianne stood, her composure crumbling. You don't know what you've done. Oh, I do, Emma said. I did what Daniel couldn't. I finished what he started. The room erupted, shouting, disbelief, chaos. Emma stood calm in the eye of the storm. And then, a sharp gasp came from the far end of the room. Everyone turned as the dining room doors slowly creaked open. A figure stepped inside. Tall, lean, familiar. Emma's breath caught in her throat. It was Daniel. Alive. A hushed silence fell, as if the very air had vanished from the room. He looked tired, worn down by whatever life he had been living, but very much alive. Daniel? Emma whispered. He nodded. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Marianne stumbled backward. You were dead. No, Daniel said quietly. I faked it. I was trying to escape all of you, but someone turned my plan into murder. Emma's knees nearly buckled. You lied to me. I had no choice, Daniel said, voice thick with regret. But now they'll pay. The room imploded into chaos once more. Accusations, denials, panic. But Emma stood still, staring at the man she thought she had buried. Her husband, the liar, the survivor. And suddenly she realized this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a much darker one.